Welcome to You Know Me, a podcast for Brunswick and the Golden Isles. I'm Buddha,
This is The Beard.
and we are here in beautiful St. Simon's Island, way down at the Hampton River Marina.
It's beautiful out.
And it's something amazing. It's July, and we're in the middle of summer. And one of the things I love about the summer, for me, I have a lot of fond memories of going fishing.
Same here. I grew up on Long Island, so fishing was a big thing for us.
Yeah, I love going fishing, and we have a great guest.
We
I've
do.
been looking forward to having for a while. I've been seeing his posts on Instagram. I was like, we got to get this guy, Tim Cutting. Tim, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
First, honored to be with the Beard and Buddha. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you.
Been here for about 15 years and fished pretty much all my life. And we run charters in Jacksonville. I married a wonderful lady up here, Michelle, and said, "Why don't you get in the business?" And it kind of took off from there. And we've been blessed. It's first of all, it's the hardest place I've ever fished, but some of the best people I've met in the last 15 years have been right here. And I said we're blessed. We stayed busy.
Cool. And what is the name of the fishing charter?
Coastal Georgia Inshore Charters.
Nice.
How did you get started in this?
Probably originally years and years ago, growing up in North Florida, I loved the salt marsh, and it would get my dad to stop at every puddle down the road going to the beach. And from there, it really took off. In my later years, it started with a lot of tournament fishing. We started a real nice club in Jacksonville that was it was the Florida Lure Anglers, and that really got me into it a lot, just because anything in your bass bag that use freshwater, these fish will eat. And from there, I was really enamored. There's nothing against bait, and I use plenty, but that artificial fishing in the marsh and figuring out my tides, it envelops you. It's crazy. It's very addicting.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I remember going fishing off of Long Island, and it's like it does become addicting because it's every weekend. Me, my cousin, my brother-in-law, we're like, well, let's go get another fishing charter, or let's go figure out where we can go fishing. So yeah, I understand that addiction to fishing.
So with the inshore fishing, that means you're just staying around kind of the estuaries?
Yeah, typically you could divide it into inshore / nearshore, where a lot of captains and anglers, both recreational and commercial, they'll fish the rivers, small creeks, so small you can barely put boats in them, the sounds, and then what we call nearshore, or on the beach, maybe out to 3 miles, maybe even 5 miles you can consider nearshore, because there's a very good nearshore fishery. Right now it's pretty good. We have tarpon show up, and there's a lot of those on the beaches really almost from the Carolinas to here, but there's a good population in Georgia of tarpon, and fishing that nearshore, that beach, can be real rewarding.
That was the last fish I caught. It was a 6.5 foot, 160-pound tarpon.
You're in for a day.
Oh yeah, it was about an hour and 20 minutes
Just fighting.
of fighting and jumping out of the water. It was something out of the Travel Channel. It was great. My arm felt like it was going to fall off.
And it's funny you say that. There are as many tarpon here as I've seen in the Keys. When summer gets here, especially about now through maybe mid-September, the population of tarpon here it's astounding. It's nothing to see 100, 150 in a day. He's not the easiest fish to catch. A lot of people, including myself, will call it our favorite frustration.
that's what the guy I was with, he said, some guys have been out here for 30 years trying to catch one of these things, and I went out there. It was our second trip with this guy or something like that. The first time we went out, it was just little sharks and things like that, but that's our first try for tarpon. I got one.
And thankfully around here, there's a lot of guides that, they've put the time in, and they catch tarpon. I mean, you're not as short for guides that can put you on or put you near a tarpon, and it's crazy. Those 2 months are crazy. I call it the show when they start blasting bait and they come down the river. I mean, your heart starts beating, and it's a crazy scene when the show happens.
That's awesome. So let's see if we can confirm a myth or debunk it. I've been hearing a lot about this. over at the golf course here, Sea Palms, I've been told that you can find baby tarpon and baby red bull in the water hazards. Is that? Do you know if that's true or not?
100%. We call them salt ponds, and I see a lot of them exist, especially from North Florida up into the Carolinas. It's what happened. It can be a retention pond at a golf course, but these golf courses that are close to marshes that have salt in them, they've often built drains, because they need a drain.
Right.
Well, they drain into the marsh, and as the tide comes in and out, fish get in there, and not only tarpon but snook, and they'll winter in these places. And so I've seen guys catch flounder, snook, tarpon, speckled trout, and redfish, and black drum all in the same day in these salt ponds.
Wow.
Wow.
Not that everyone should go break into the golf course and do it. So
Well, just maybe just add a rod and reel to your bag. Just when you're waiting for the foursome ahead of you to finish up at the hole, just cast a few times and see what you can get.
And people have known for years a lot of the golf course ponds have big bass in them. And golfers, there's a lot of them that'll fish, when they're done with their 18. But the salt ponds can be really, really rewarding. And I think there's some you could probably access. Of course, I'd get permission or know somebody. But there's some, I think, that you can walk to these little areas. And, they're definitely in there. My son actually right now is fishing for baby tarpon in a place not too far from here.
In an undisclosed location.
It's classified.
Google's your friend.
Yeah.
So when you're going out in the charters, what kind of fish you're going for? Does it depend on the season too?
Very much so. It's hot right now. One of the main fish people like to catch, of course, is speckled trout and redfish, and they're here 12 months of the year. And that's another good thing about this part of the country. It's a 12-month-a-year fishery, a very good one. There's a lot of bait here, and the water warms up, so the fish, they don't group up as much as they do when the water gets cold. But you can absolutely catch speckled trout and redfish right now. But I target this time of year triple tail. That's something we hadn't talked about. They show up. They're migratory. We get them in the warm water. Flounder, although you can catch them 12 months a year, when the water gets hot, the flounder bite can be real good. And, of course, tarpon, like we've talked about. And another fish that sometimes gets a bad rap, but to catch a big shark, you're probably one of the number one places in the country. And varieties. There's 10 or 12 for people that want to knock different species of sharks off their list. This is a great place to go, and that's just about a guarantee.
Yeah. So
Wow.
this area, especially around Jekyll Island, is the second most populated breeding ground for sharks. And I've caught blacktip, lemon shark, needletooth, baskethead, and nurse sharks. Of course, when you're doing that, you're going to catch a ton of stingrays.
Yeah.
Which is like trying to pull up a dead body.
They can be aggravating. Believe it or not, we've caught some big ones, and people come back, especially people don't get to see the salt marsh or the rivers that much, and they'll look at me and say, "Remember last year we caught that big stingray? Can we do that again?" If you want to.
So, when you go out, are you going out for a specific species with your charter, or you're doing kind of like a broad spectrum of?
9 out of 10 times we're trying to target something, and to me that's, and for the anglers too, a lot of time to catch what you're actually targeting. All right, we're going to go here look for trout and catch trout, or we're going to go look for redfish and we catch redfish, or flounder, or whatever the species may be. I would say for a lot of anglers, live shrimp is a choice. Usually suspended under some type of float. What's real popular in North Florida and around here is an adjustable float, which lets you float at any depth you like, probably up to 20 foot reasonably. And you use the current, and you pretty much let your float take off. You let the current bring it. And it's a great tool because it fishes above rocks, above stuff you might normally get hung on, and it covers a lot of water. We send them in a freeze pool and almost let them go till they're out of sight. But it covers a lot of water, and it catches everything. And I would say for most people looking for table fare, they're targeting either redfish, flounder, trout, sheep's head, or black drum. Those are probably the big five. In the spring, whiting shows up, which is a very underrated fish, very good table fare. But the big three are probably flounder, trout, redfish. But sheepshead's right up in there. There's a whole legion of sheepshead fishermen.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely a great fish to catch. I don't think I've caught one yet.
Great table fare, too. Very underrated. Very good fish. A lot of people compare it to American red snapper. It's a very white meat, and he is the devil to catch sometimes. There's different methods. Typically, it's a fiddler crab, just fish vertically next to some kind of structure, which could be anything. Anything that holds a barnacle probably holds a sheep's head.
Wow. So how long do you usually spend out in the water?
A lot of people, and the norm is usually a 4 to 6 to 8 hour trip. I've always just done one trip a day. I don't know if I have it in me to do two.
Yeah.
And typically we'll stay out anywhere from 4 to 6 hours or until the people get tired of me.
You ever do any night fishing?
I used to do a lot of it, and that's an untapped thing. You need to be careful and have the right equipment. You know, lights on your boat, number one. And I probably shouldn't put this on the air, but be very careful when you do this. But lighted docks, and especially this time of year, hold a ton of fish. And you may fish 7 docks, and all of a sudden you go to the 8th one, and it's on. But especially speckled trout, they love lighted docks.
Really?
It's a pretty good fishery. Like I said, you have to be careful. You know, you don't want to hang stuff on people's docks. You don't want to be noisy. And some people, we used to fish North Florida. One lady had a sprinkler she'd turn on, and another guy would just turn his lights off.
So are they attracted to the light? Is that what?
The bait is, and then the chain starts. And sometimes on a good dock, you'll pull up maybe 200 feet away, and you'll know it's good because you can see the fish eating.
Wow.
They're popping the surface, and it's you know you're about to get bit.
So the rivers hold a variety of different species then, huh?
That's one thing about the guys that fish with me a lot. They say, you never know what you're going to catch in the salt,
Yeah.
which is quite true. And even on the lighted docks, you'll catch multiple species, too. You go out and you can knock 10 species off your bucket list, no problem.
Wow.
And as it gets cooler, the species kind of narrow down. But this time of year, like I said, you know, besides the tarpon, tripletail, flounder, trout, redfish, sheepshead, black drum, there's a whole mess of other species that shows up. Bluefish, croakers, whiting, spots, the aforementioned stingray. There's some crazy. I've caught a guitar fish one time. It's a pretty crazy fishery. That being said, though, this is the single hardest place I've ever fished. So if you're out there getting skunked, I've been there, buddy. This is a tough fishery.
So what makes it hard?
The tides.
The tides.
Until you get to probably north of Cape Cod, right there at it. These are the biggest tides on the East Coast. Average probably around 6.5 feet. But if you watch your tide charts and see, you know, what it goes from bottom to top, sometimes you'll see it move 9 to 10 feet. And then a good west wind blow all the water out. And a good northeast wind on a big moon will blow all the water in. And people that have, a nice view of the marsh sometimes have water up to their back door.
Wow. Man, I gotta go. I haven't been fishing in the longest time.
Shame on you.
I know. Yeah, last time I really went fishing for stripers was a long time ago, like over 20 years ago, off the coast of Montauk, out that way.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, we have a striper fisher here too. I should have mentioned it, but in the winter, and most of these are hybrids, and a lot of them are stocked. But there are true stripers too, especially in Savannah River. But in the winter, they come this way.
Wow.
And there's several places where I've caught stripers within sight of this marina, Hampton River Marina, and most of those are hybrids, but they come down from usually around the Macon area. As it gets cold, they show up here every winter.
So what do you mean by hybrids?
It's a hybrid. He's been hybridized. I think I might be wrong, but I think it was a cross between a white bass and a striper.
Okay.
And they've stocked many lakes with them because they do very well in the waters in the south. They've got them almost all the way to Palatka, if you know where that is in Florida. Stripers will go that far south. They don't breed as much in the hot water. I think the Savannah River still has breeders, and I may be wrong. St. Mary's very possible, but they've just done very well on their stockers, and they do good. I think the only thing about the hybrid is they've taken over a lot of the true stripers' habitat. They're that voracious, and they grow that fast.
Wow.
Fun fish, still good eating. I think the minimum for here is 22 inches. It may be different in that Savannah River. They have a different fishery up there.
Yeah. Have you seen any invasive species of fish?
I haven't, but I know there's lionfish on some of our wrecks. Now, that's not in my world or my realm, but that's an invasive. And I know, of course, in the interior, that snakehead is not a good one. I will say this, the balance has changed a lot. I've seen a lot more catfish the last 3 years, saltwater catfish. And, of course, we get a lot of rain, freshwater catfish right off this dock. I mean, it's amazing how that mixes. The Altamaha you can see it from here. If you're at the north end and you look off to the northwest, you can pretty much see Darien. And we get a lot of that influx. Sturgeons show up a lot. In the last 10 years, I've seen a crazy amount of sturgeons. One jumped in my boat. That's another story.
It's a good fishing story.
Yeah,
those things get to be ginormous.
They're big. They're huge. And the next thing is, we were talking about sharks before. They may be becoming a problem. I'm not a biologist and not going to make a whole lot of comments, but I've had a few tarpon and a few redfish eaten in the last couple of years, and that didn't happen all the time. And now I'm afraid to put my hands in the water, landing some of these fish. And one time bull redfishing, and I think they went 4 for 4, came back with half a fish, and twice on a tarpon last year. And I've heard this echoed a lot of places, even on the near shore, the mackerel fishermen, and any species, cobia for that matter, whatever. The sharks they either become very smart and tuning into fishing boats and what's going on, or there's just a lot more of them. But
there's been an increase in just the interaction between sharks and humans.
Shark attacks.
Yeah, Volusia County in Florida might be the shark capital of the world. And I think this year I saw maybe 2 in the same day in Texas, and I think over there in Panama City they've had a little brush with a few.
Yep, there's quite a bit, and you see every day I'm almost reading about someone in Florida getting bit, and they're finding, of course they keep up with what's going on off of Cape Cod and Martha's Vineyard, and they're finding big great whites.
Jaws.
Yeah.
And that's where they filmed it.
Filmed in Long Island.
Yeah.
Amityville.
And they have the schools of hammerheads that go through around Cape Cod and Martha's Vineyard.
We've got the big T-heads and hammerheads, and you're right, there was a scene that's filmed right there in the vineyard. I think there's a bridge right there that's famous.
It's in Edgartown. Yep, it's the bridge going in. It's called State Beach, and there's like a little estuary that goes in. There's a bridge you can drive over, and they call it the pond, and it's just part of the ocean, but it's protected from the waves and the wind, and you can kind of you'll see kayaks and the paddle boards in there now. But back then it was like the windsurfers, because you didn't have to deal with but State Beach is on the west side of the island, so it doesn't get the waves. So if you have little kids, it's great. And that's why they filmed that scene there, because they didn't have all the waves. If you go to North Beach, now you're kind of facing more to the Atlantic, you could go surfing there. But that State Beach, there's very little waves, so it's perfect for location for filming those beach scenes. And my wife is a huge Jaws fan, so when we do visit my folks, we always make a point to go over to Martha's Vineyard so we can kind of hang out in Edgartown and see this is where they film
the movie
and stuff. And when we were little, we used to see George Shaw, because he ended up buying a house after he filmed the movie.
It's my wife's favorite movie too. She can quote every darn line.
Oh yeah. That's a bad hat, Harry.
We're going to need a bigger boat.
But, so, you mentioned bluefish. I didn't know bluefish came all the way down here.
With inside of here, and I'll tell you a little secret. It happened every April. Some 10 to 15 pounders. And if you're from the Northeast, you know the term, choppers or snappers.
Yep.
Yeah.
And most we catch snappers here. They're snapper blues,
Yeah.
half pound to 3 pounds.
Yeah.
But with inside of here, the end of the seawall up there, 2 years in a row, some choppers came in, and we missed the Georgia record by 1.5 pounds.
Really?
And just one little area along the seawall just up from here, and they showed up 2 Aprils in a row. And it was crazy. We finally went to 80-pound leader just to hook, and we hooked about 25 one day.
Oh,
and then
my
we
gosh.
landed about 10, but it was the craziest thing, and it happened 2 years in a row. And they're not shy. They would hit about anything you put out there.
They're very aggressive. We went out one time and there wasn't a whole lot of black sea bass, so we just kind of kept the boat going and just let the lines run. And I was done fishing by 7:30 in the morning.
Tremendous fighters.
They're great fighters.
Take your finger off.
But here's the thing.
Yeah,
here's
they
the thing
have teeth. Lots of them.
about they call it bluefish because the meat's blue, and it's very oily. And I hadn't had bluefish in a long time, so we got these bluefish. And you got to bleed them right away. As soon as you get them on the boat and get the hook out, we bled every single one of them. So
Frank's making a slash over
Yeah.
the neck motion.
just for those who aren't watching this,
He's right. Though. They have a big piece of red meat in there that needs to come out.
yeah, and but I tried cooking it. I tried grilling it. I tried putting it in baking it. I used like a major super citrusy marinade, kind of cut the oil. I just couldn't get over it.
The key is a cedar plank, and there's some special herbs, a lot of garlic, some of that sriracha sauce. People are putting cilantro on it, and dill and mayonnaise. And
Yeah.
once you cover it and put it on that cedar plank and cook it for maybe 30 minutes, just scrape all off the top and eat the plank.
But it's a great fish. And it's a great fighting fish.
Yeah, they're fun to just have.
And
just to
truthfully,
fish
smaller ones, they do eat. And a real quick funny story, and I won't mention the guide's name. And we sat around with a big multiple boat tour at a restaurant close to here. I'll give that name, Mudcat Charlie's. And they cook your fish for you.
Yep.
But we did the same thing, and we up there, and I brought a cook a $20 bill, and I said, I want you to cook this bluefish and bring it in front of this guide right here, because they were pretty much bad-mouthing that poor thing. And, of course, fried that day. You could probably fry a shoe. I don't know. But he ate it and loved it, and I said, you're eating bluefish. And, no, I'm not. I said, yes, you are. And go ask the cook. Yeah. And a week later, a family member of this guide came up and said, you got him keeping bluefish now. I don't recommend freezing them, but the smaller ones, 2 pounds or less, if you clean them that day, and there is a little bit of a red line there you can cut out. They're not bad. Same as Spanish mackerel. You eat them that day, they're pretty good.
Yeah.
Yep.
We used to go for when I was kids. We used to go fishing for snapper off the pier where I grew up. Some tiny little snappers, and they would basically just hit on anything. So
That's funny you said that. My wife is from Long Island, and she talks about catching snapper blues
Yeah.
all the time.
yeah, it was just especially if you lived on the Sound, the Long Island Sound. That's something that you would do every summer. Is you just go to the pier, and they would just hit on anything, and you could catch I don't know, if you stood there all day, you could catch 1,000 baby snappers or whatever, baby blues.
Piranhas.
Yeah, they are. They
Yeah.
are. Yeah, if you ever see the teeth on these things, they are vicious. They are vicious.
That's how I learned how to water ski, by the way. They're there's a whole bunch of baby snappers in here, and they'll start biting you.
Yeah, because they
Get me
would.
out.
They hit on it. You just put the pole in. They had just.
A general rule of saltwater is don't lip the fish.
Yeah. So have you caught anything when it came out of the water and you put it in the boat and you're like, what the heck is this?
That guitar fish got me, and it looks like a guitar. It's sort of a cross between a skate and a stingray, but it looks like a guitar. And we caught a snook here just recently. We caught 2 snook here just recently. That's kind of surprising. Caught an octopus one time. That was pretty surprising. But most of the time you'll have the species down. After a few years of summer, you'll catch everything that swims out there. Every now and then I'll have to call another of my good buddies, Captain Brooks Good, biologist from UGA and a great fisherman as well. And there was a fish that, to me, it looked like a baby cobia, but it's a hake. And it's a spotted hake, and they show up early spring, and he's kind of a unique. They don't get big, but he's a funny looking critter. Eels, we have eels too. You can catch an eel.
Wow. It's crazy all the stuff that you can catch.
It's really amazing.
It's really diverse. And that's probably one of the reasons there's a big draw here, right? Because you just don't know what you're going to.
And marsh area is second only to Louisiana. I mean, we have more salt marsh than any other state with the exception of Louisiana.
Wow. That's crazy. So it's how many years did it took you to start memorizing all these different types of species of fish that you catch?
It's almost mandatory after a while. It's like these birds. They get on the marsh and someone say, "What's that?" A heron, and then be a white one. "What's that?" Heron. What's that? "Oh, another heron." But finally, I bought a bird book. And, it's like anything. Once you've been in your neighborhood, you know that's a blue house and that's a yellow house.
Right.
It's repetitive. You'll know.
Yeah. Yeah, because I'm hearing you guys talking about all these fish, and I'm trying to mentally picture them in my head to see okay, I think I know what you guys are talking about.
A big southern species is in the drum family, and that encompasses quite a few. The croakers, the spots, the whitings. Speckled trout's actually a drum. Redfish is a drum. Black drum is a drum. And I'm probably skipping a few, but the drum is a big species. And it's not the same as a freshwater drum. Most of all the drum species eat very well.
So if it looks like a drum, then it must be a drum.
Yes, and they actually drum. I mean, there's a drumming sound they emit, and it's pretty cool.
Wow, man, I gotta go. I gotta get on your boat.
That's gonna happen.
So, you run year round. How many people you take on a charter?
I'm getting older, so I like two, but I love one. But I try to keep it to three or less, and it's only because of the experience. It's a 20-foot bay boat, and I have fished more. But once you get three up there, it gets a little lack of elbow room, and then some of the targets are small, and you've got three people fishing the same spot. We do it, and it works. But I think two is the perfect trip. It's a good experience for everybody. There are bigger boats that you're more comfortable in, and there's a lot of guys that have bigger boats and are more comfortable taking more than that. But I'm going to cap it at three pretty much. And sometime on a kids trip, the kids are small, and we're just going to bottom fish. We may put up to 5 on there. But usually, like I said, 2 is great, and we will fish up to 3, and we do that often.
So I'm going to just ask this question here. Have you had anybody, get boat sick on your trips?
It may, about maybe 5 years ago, Mother's Day, fishing with my mom in the marsh. And we were catching drum, redfish, trout, and we decided to go out in the sound. And she does not get sick. She's an athlete. Sure enough, I get my mom sick on Mother's Day.
Oh my
It was
gosh.
just the perfect little roll in the sound. And we're
Right.
not, we're not a mile from the beach at all. I mean, we're close. you
Right,
know.
right.
And I could see it coming here, and I've got a couple other guys that fish. If it gets a little bumpy, it's an in-ear thing. And there's no shame in getting seasick. I've never been seasick, but I will take a Dramamine the night before and in the morning and that day just in case, I guess. But I do take them. But yeah, it's an inner ear thing, and a lot of people have it. Now there is so many meds out there that cure that, and some of them are a little pricey, some of them are not. It was the patch and the different means. I think there's a dolamine. I may be pronouncing it wrong, but there's spolazine. I wish I could think of it, but there's several out there now that are anti-motion, and a lot of the vertigo medication takes care of it too. And it's pretty effective.
So that's good advice for anybody that might get seasick but wants to go fishing.
Yep.
My wife's cousin gets seasick every time he goes, and you can't stop him from fishing. He's puking and fishing.
You got to do what you got to do.
Yeah.
So I've been told in the past when you're getting seasick is kind of focus on the horizon, and just kind of keep your eyes, looking forward on the horizon.
100%. That and about 90 other things that don't work. Once you're sick, it's usually over.
Yeah.
Yeah, usually.
A good friend of mine takes his wife, and she gets sick probably just about every time they go, and she loves it and will continue going.
Oh yeah, I know. When I was a kid, my dad and I would go up to Gloucester and take this big charter boat for cod fishing. But it's 4 hours out before you even drop a line. And there's sometimes where it's like 4-foot swells the entire time. I'm in and out of that bathroom just puking up lung. My left lung, then my right lung. But then as soon as the boat stops, I'm dropping a line. I'm catching that cod.
You're better than most of them. Most of them never leave the bathroom or quit laying down. It's over.
I'll lay down, and of course I was a kid, so everyone kind of takes care of the kid type of thing. But as soon as that boat stopped, I was ready. I was like,
and those guys aren't turning around.
No. Once you're out there, man, you're out there, and we'll come home with, and they'll clean all the fish on the way back. We'll catch cod, haddock, and cusk. And every single time we go out there, you see whales. There's a whale show every single time. I've never had to go on a whale watch tour. It's like I just go fishing in August with my dad, and we'll see a ton of whales coming in and coming out every single year.
And I've heard that area has a lot of whales, different ones.
Yep. And I got a couple of really good whale stories. And then a lot of times we'll see the blue sharks because they'll follow the boat, because what they do is when you catch, they give you like a mark, and they mark the fish. They throw all the fish into a bin, the same bin, and they use Roman numerals. So like if you're the first one to catch the fish, you're one. And then they'll find all the ones, and they'll find all that, and they do a great job filleting all the fish. You tip them like $40, but they're throwing the skins and the carcasses over. You can see the dorsal fins following behind. We had one night where a guy pulled a baby cod, and as the deckhand was reaching over to grab the line, pulling the boat, blue shark came right out of the water, just missed his hand by inches. So everyone goes in a buzz. They grab this rope that's about this thick with a hook like that on it. They put the fish on the hook, throw it out there. The shark takes it, and these guys, grown men, are pulling this rope to the boat, hand over hand. The first mate gives me a club. I'm 13 years old. He's like, when a shark gets on the boat, you hit it over the head as hard as you can. I look at my dad, and my dad's like, he's like shaking his head, and I'm like, okay. As soon as they got the shark right to the side of the boat, he let go of the hook, and I'm like, oh, like I almost bashed in the blue shark.
Thank God.
I'm like, I know. I was kind of feeling like I dodged a bullet on this one.
It's like the dog chases the car. What's he gonna do when he catches it?
Right.
Yeah.
Traumatized for life after that.
But I mean, God, I think I got seasick probably almost every single trip we went out there. But it was worth it. It was just so much fun fishing out there. I loved it. It was in the cod. We came home with so much cod. It was great.
There's a lot to be said for offshore fishing. The water changes color. All of a sudden it's blue, and you don't see land, and it's like a different world. There's some people I know that would do it every single day. They just eat. It's amazing the color of the water. Mm-hmm. You catch a fish, and you're looking down there 30, 40 feet, and you can see the fish. It's a pretty amazing fishery.
Yeah. Now, talking about fisheries, so I'm assuming you've been, fishing on this river for a while, so you know where the different spots are then, huh?
Sometimes.
Don't want to give away any secrets.
No, I pattern it, and I think everyone should be. On the average, that water is going to drop 6 feet, and so at a higher tide, where that fish may be up against the grass or some shell or some kind of structure, he's there, and maybe it's from a fish. Now, as it drops out, that fish can't even be there anymore.
Right.
And it goes another foot, he's got to go somewhere else, another foot down somewhere else. And so you pretty much, tidal's everything. The tide is everything. You pretty much find your spots and say, well, this fish is good at low tide, and this fish is good at mid tide, and this fish is with the water going out, and this fish is where the water's going in. And if I can recommend anything to anybody is, 10, 15 minutes, if you're not getting bit pretty good, move. If it's a great spot and you've caught fish there before, you can always come back to it. But the more you fish it, you'll say, I caught fish here at low tide. And you want to have as many spots as possible. On a good day, you only have to go to one of them. But it doesn't always happen like that. We fish 10 or 12 spots sometimes, to put 10 or 12 fish together. And there's good days and bad days. And If any guy tells you he's going to catch fish every time, he's a liar, or he's a lot better than me. I mean, it's fishing. Sometimes they don't bite as good.
Right.
The good thing about this time of year, though, and for a lot of folks who don't get to fish that much, you can catch something. You're going to catch fish. You can keep kids busy, on these charters, and it may not be table fare, and that's another whole part of it. There's a lot of catch and release guys, which I commend, and there's a whole bunch of guys that like to take a bunch of fish home, which I have no problem with either. I mean, if DNR says this is healthy and this is the size it needs to be and this is how many you can catch, I'm on board with that. There's probably a few things that we probably won't get into in this, but there's probably some management stuff that have been in question, and I'll just mention one fish, the redfish. He's been in question for quite a while, and now, thanks to Louisiana cutting back, we have the most relaxed limit on redfish of any state.
Really?
You can keep 5 here, and that's a lot compared to a lot of states. And
Wow.
it's just a management system, and maybe our fishery's that good. Maybe it's not. That's, like I say, it's a discussion for another day, but we have a pretty generous limit on that fish. And the idea is you want these fish for years and years and years.
Right.
You want your kids to fish them, and you want the marsh to be healthy, and at the same time you don't want to regulate something where it upsets the balance, and that's a tough thing. I have a lot of admiration for DNR biologists and stuff, and there's different people who cuss these people, but they're not out there to destroy the fishery. They're trying to do the best they can do.
Yeah, because if you overfish, then there's going to be nothing for future generations, and of course you ruin the ecosystem at the same time.
It's a delicate balance.
There's hundreds of stories of fish disappearing. Too many of this, not enough of that. I mean, that's not a uncommon theme. It happens in a lot of places. People tell you I used to catch 10 of these a day, and now I don't even see one. It is a delicate balance. It's like you said.
Speaking of the DNR, when you have clients coming in to fish on your boat, do they need to get their own fishing license, or how does that work?
9 out of 10 guides buy the license that covers their passengers. I know I do. I can't speak for everybody, but I think most do. So I can cover up to 6 passengers.
Okay.
And that's typical with a OUPV or a 6-pack license, is that most guides will get, number 1, a license to guide in the state of Georgia. Number 2, their own fishing license so they can fish. And then number 3, a license that covers their clients. And in the big picture, all that's probably less than $200. It's not expensive.
That's not bad.
No.
Wow.
Compared to some states, it's very, very inexpensive
And
to fish in Georgia.
That's for the whole year.
That's for the whole year.
Wow.
So, you can tell I like to fish, but I mean I'm not an expert. I'm still consider myself a beginner. What would you tell someone? Someone could say, "Hey, I just moved in from New York, and this place is beautiful. I want to become a fisherman on my spare time. I want this to be my hobby." What are you going to tell someone?
You probably split it into 2 things. You're going to have a boat or not, and if you're not, then you'll have to identify places you can fish from the shore. Fortunately, there's some places, but unfortunately, there's not as many as probably they should be for public access. Some of the bridges along the causeway going to St. Simon's have some pretty good spots. Surf fishing is marginal here, but it can happen, especially for sharks and bull reds in the fall and some other fish. It's not the best surf fishery. And with the tides and with the softness of the marsh, it's not an area that you would typically wade. There are some wading scenarios on those big tides where the redfish will get in the grass, and that's just something you have to learn about the short grass where you can actually walk on it. That is shore accessible, but that's a real small window. And so if you're shore bound, it's a little tougher, but there are places to fish, and you would fish them the same way as you do out of a boat, whether it's on the bottom with shrimp or throwing plastics, which we throw a lot of plastics at different times of year, or floating a cork, or just putting a dead bait on the bottom. More than likely this time of year, at any of these places, you're going to catch something. Might be a stingray, might be a small shark. There's a lot of those, and there'll always be a lot of here when the warms up. And if you're in a boat, you kind of have to recognize probably number 1, how many people are going to go on your boat, on a regular basis. So decide that, and right away I'll tell you there's not a perfect boat for everything. It doesn't exist. But once you recognize, where you want to go and how many people are going to be on your boat, that's a great start right there. And I'm not just in this because I'm a guide, but hire a guide. There's a lot of good guides around here. I mean, a ton of them. And that will help you a lot. Now, I don't recommend fishing the guide spot. I don't think that's kosher. I'm not going to say that people don't do it, but I would just, try to grasp the techniques and the wheres and the when and the how and whys, and you'll find your own spots. I mean, I've been on this river for maybe 15 solid years, and I probably fished 1% of it.
Wow.
I mean, there's fish in a lot of places. I always tell people it looks fishy, fish it, but that's not true. There's a lot of fish in a lot of places and different, and it's, unfortunately it's time on the water, and not everybody has that. That's why hiring a guide may cut the learning experience in half, and there's no wrong way to do it. Shrimp, artificial, deep, shallow, whatever. I will say this for most anglers, trout, redfish, flounder, those fish are going to be in 1 to 6 foot of water relating to somewhere along the bank. That's whether it's shell, a dock, a fallen tree, a creek mouth. Those fish are going to be pretty much 6 feet and under. And when we do fish deeper, and there are certain times when you do, but like fishing a pond, beat the banks, and you will find fish.
Yeah. So how deep does this river get?
I'd say average, the rivers cut the middles out in that 20 to 30 foot range.
Wow.
But you can be in that 20, 30 foot range, and then in 10 feet you're going to be high and dry. So that's another thing. Watch for sandbars, and so there are a lot of, it changes, and some of the sandbars actually change. But there are shallow spots. But fortunately, a lot of the mapping systems now, whether it's Garmin or Lowrance or whatever you use, they're fairly accurate. And as a rule, if you're not sure, just slow down. Don't go crazy. Just slow down, and if it starts getting shallow and you stop, back out and try another direction. That being said, if you ain't been aground, you ain't been around.
Yeah, I remember we took one of these charter fishing trips down at Captree, which is near Jones Beach on Long Island. Yeah, and I remember the captain, he ran aground, and I remember someone coming over the thing. He's like, "Don't say anything about the captain running aground," because I guess he was super embarrassed that he ran. And we're not talking about one of these small. We're talking a huge fish. Had at least 30 to 40 people on this boat.
Only approach that sandbar as fast as you want to hit it.
Oh yeah, that thing was everyone's like, "What is going on?" And it's we're gonna be stuck out here for days, like Gilligan Island.
Oh yes. So, can there be? Does the DNR offer anything for beginners or people who?
Actually, they provide a very good map. It's not excellent for the shorebound angler, but for the boaters, they've got some really good stuff marked for nearshore and inshore, and it even breaks it down to type of species and type of fishing. And I think they do it by county. So if you went to the DNR here, which is located right underneath the Sidney Lanier Bridge on the east side, on the northeast side, they've got maps for Camden, Glen, McIntosh, and they're nice maps.
Nice.
Just to have, just to look, and this creek's named that, and I can get in here and go there. That's it. We used to do a lot of seminars. We used to do some at West Marine back in the day, and I always entertain the thought. It takes a lot to put that together, but there's several captains, and there's been a couple seminars. I don't see many, but I think there should be more of that goes on. I think most captains they're not afraid to reveal secrets. Most of them would enjoy speaking, I think. But a lot of that probably, I think more fishing education would be beneficial, and not, which is very important, to how to let go fish, how to manage a fish, and that type of thing, but actually how to catch fish. I mean, I think that's been, I want people to catch fish. I like to see good catches. I don't like to see good catches when I didn't catch any that day, but
it's just very different down here from what going up with what I was doing. Even if I was going over to Clay Pit Pond just to catch some sunfish, or they call them crappies or whatever.
Hornpout.
It's just a worm and a bobber, and you throw it out there. And I come down here and you see like these rigs with weights, and they spread out, and it looks like a children's mobile, and they're thrown in the water, and it goes down the bottom. Like where I'm from, it's like you don't touch the bottom, because if your hook touches the bottom, it's not coming off.
There's some of that here too.
Yeah.
But I would say go back to the KISS theory. Keep it simple, stupid. I mean,
Yep.
we use a jig head, which weighs up to maybe a quarter ounce at the most. 1/16, 1/8, and again, we're pitching to just a 1 to 6 foot of water, and it can be pegged with a dead shrimp, a live shrimp, or a plastic. And I'd say 80% of the fish we catch are like that. If it's not floating under the cork, we're just pinning a bait to a real light presentation. And you're going to lose some rigs. You're going to break off. So bring extra. But it's pretty simple rig. It's tie a jig head to some fishing line and go. 20-pound braid will just about get any fish done. You don't have to put a leader on the end of it, but some people do. And then, like I say, familiarize yourself with these float rigs or popping corks. That they are effective. When I moved here, I didn't own a cork, and now my garage is full of them. And I'll reiterate, this is the toughest place I've ever fished,
Really?
without a doubt.
So when a client comes on your boat, do you provide the everything, or do they have to bring stuff with them?
Define everything.
But everything besides the fish.
No, it's pretty much walk on with maybe something you want to drink, although I usually have half a case of water stuck in there and maybe something to snack on. And then bait, tackle, that's all provided. Fish cleaning's provided. The ice is provided. Everyone bags the customer's fish for them. So really, it's pretty much walk on, bring what you want to eat and drink. I do recommend, and I usually always have it. I can't say that happens every time, but bug spray, sunscreen, a hat, and sunglasses. And when the cooler months, dress like it's going to snow, because you can always get out of it. But if you don't bring enough on there, you're going to freeze. You're not going to be comfortable. And keep a raincoat. It doesn't have to be an expensive one, but sometimes these showers, and this time of year especially, it'll rain hard and you'll be cold. You'll be soaking wet, and the wind starts blowing.
Yeah.
So it's nice to have just a little shell just to keep the water off you.
Yeah, I think for me the most important thing is sunscreen. You don't want to get people keep on forgetting about sunscreen.
The skin cancer is a real thing.
Yeah,
I've had a couple burn off me, and I should be a little more diligent. And I've gotten better over the years, but it's a real thing.
Yeah.
Especially kids. I mean, when you got your young, cover them up where they look like Bozo the Clown. It doesn't matter, but it'd be better than what can happen in the future.
Yeah, I always bring. I have what's called CIS, crappy Irish skin. So I go from clear to red. There's no tan for me. So I'm like, can I have like SPF 1,000,000, please? Because I like being outdoors. But I'll just.
And the extremities people ignore: the nose, the ears, the back of the neck. Those areas get beat up pretty bad.
Yeah.
So those are probably some of the first ones you need to address.
You know what I noticed is the upper lip. People forget that, and it happened to me. I was actually out skiing in California in the spring, and you wouldn't believe it, but you can get a really bad burn.
Oh yeah.
And I covered everything I had, because I was skiing in shorts and a t-shirt. I forgot right here.
On the upper lip.
On the upper lip, and the whole thing got so burnt from here to here. It was like one big giant blister.
That wasn't from being on your back so much, was it?
Oh no! You can.
Skiing, I'm on my back.
You're a good fisherman. I'm a good skier.
Yeah.
I can definitely ski better than I can fish.
Well, people forget that the sun is going to reflect off the water, reflect off the snow.
That's a huge factor. That both those, there's a lot of snow burns that happen just because of that reflection you're talking about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the same thing probably happens on the water, right?
Absolutely.
The sun bouncing back off on you on that water, and you don't even realize it. Next thing you know, you look like a lobster.
And the ultraviolet's real strong on semi-cloudy days.
Yeah.
You wouldn't think it is. That you can get a bad burn. Especially a little wind, a little cloud, and sunny. You'll be burnt pretty good.
Yeah. And then I always get the polarized sunglasses because it flattens everything out. and you miss the contours, especially if you're skiing. But I mean, probably be easier with the water, but I always skip the polarized lenses because it just makes everything flat.
When I was younger, the myth was if you wore polarized lenses, you could see the fish in the water. Is that?
It's 100% true. And polarization is there's different levels. So like your expensive glasses will have just more layers of it. But it's nothing's required. I find myself not wearing sunglasses a lot of times, but if I'm sight fishing, I'll often have 2 or 3 different shades.
Really?
Of very good glasses,
So
just
what-
for that reason.
So what causes, like, what's the science behind it? Do you know? Or
I guess that it refracts light, so certain objects show up better than others, and everyone's eyes are different.
Yeah.
And so I've seen people on the boat with $11 Shady Rays or whatever. I shouldn't say that because I think it's a brand, but you know,
from like,
I can't think of that. What was the cheap brand? They used to have a commercial. Where'd you get those peepers?
Yeah.
Cheapers, creepers. It was an old sunglass. But I've seen people with the $10 ones, and they can see the same fish I'm seeing. But I had an epiphany, and I lost my cheap sunglasses. We were in Mosquito Lagoon, and an old fishing partner said, "Well, my wife's Ocean Waves are up here. You can." And that's a pretty good company out of Jacksonville, that high dollar glass. And I put them on, and immediately started seeing stuff. I could not believe it.
Really?
So for sight fishing, highly recommend. For eye protection, everyone's eyes are different. You know, find something that works for you. You know, like you mentioned, that the polarization gave him some distortion that made it tough to ski on. And there is some distortion in just about every glass you put on, whether it's corrective or, you know, it's there. I've got a lot. I'm mentioning name brands, but I do spend some money on sunglasses, especially for sight fishing.
wow. So yeah, I mean, I've always heard people say that. Like they talk about, like if you have the right pair of sunglasses, you can see the fish in the water.
It'll blow your mind.
That's crazy.
I've handed people glasses. I don't see it, and I hand them my glass. And say, "Whoa!" You know,
It's like-
it's a whole different world.
Wow, it's like a whole new reality opens up to you.
Yeah, I'm not sure. You know, it makes a difference. You know, hunting or something. But
Yeah.
if you're wanting to see stuff on top of the water, barely under the water, or even down, you know, a few feet, depending on water clarity, it's amazing. Polarization, it's a beautiful thing.
So now on the river, does the brackishness of the water make it harder to see the fish when you're fishing?
Yeah, I'll tell people, wow, the water looks good, and they say, this is the dirtiest water I've ever seen.
Yeah.
But we do have a lot of freshwater influx, and because of the strength of the tides here and the height of them, you're moving a lot of debris, microorganisms that balloons, dirt, sand, whatever. The water gets turbid, and so it's not as clear as other regions, you know, like further south from here, or even further north than here. So in general, most people would come to this coast and say, boy, this beach looks dirty. But,
Yeah.
you know, it's just because the bottom is pretty much black everywhere, and so you get that. You know, there's an anomaly downtown Brunswick where that water in downtown it looks like the Keys. And it morely goes up and down than it does in and out. It's just, I guess they dammed the back of it years ago, and that water, for some reason, stays amazingly clear. And even it has a dark look to it. you
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
And then, of course, the Altamont is right here, and you've got the Satilla and the St. Mary's and the Savannah and the Ogeechee, and they all dump out. And we're in what's called the Georgia Bight. And if you look at that coast, probably where we are right now is on the same parallel as Cleveland.
Well, yeah,
I mean,
it's
you
true.
wouldn't-
Yeah.
You wouldn't think you're that far in.
Right.
And that bight throws a lot of water in and out, so it becomes turbid, and it's not that clean.
Yeah.
But as like right now, we're experiencing slower tides, and the water looks. You could judge.
Right,
But
yeah.
To me, it looks beautiful.
It does
but
look, yeah, and
It looks good. No, it does look good.
You can look down and you can actually see, you know, 2 or 3 foot down some of the pylons, and you know it's cleaned in. I had a rule where I dropped my trolling motor. If I couldn't see the head of it, I moved. You know, I want some clean water.
Yeah, yeah. It's always interesting when people come visit and they go to Jekyll and they're like, "Is this water okay to?" And the water's fine. The water's fine.
It's
It's going to look like chocolate milk.
that
It's okay.
6 inches of mud that you step into.
Yeah, yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah.
It's like the spa mat there.
Don't worry about whatever's touching your feet down there.
My
You'll
feet
survive.
have never been as good as when I go swimming at Jekyll with all that mud
It's just a shark.
Something touches your feet and you start doing karate moves.
Yeah, and that Georgia bite is the same kind of protection that we kind of get from these hurricanes that come in.
Well, I believe it 100%.
Yeah.
We had a couple brushed against us, but that hadn't happened in 100 years.
Yeah.
And as far as I know, I don't know there's ever been a direct hit here in the last 100 years or ever recorded, period, as far as I know. But it doesn't take much, you get the tailwinds of a hurricane blowing 50, 60, and you get that high tide. I think the bigger issue here, there is some surge and places get water they shouldn't, but that's probably the biggest thing is water damage. And, with this many older and bigger trees, anywhere that's got a lot of trees, and you lose power if you have above ground lines. But I would, fingers crossed now, I would say that we're almost hurricane proof.
Yeah,
I agree.
I hear that from being hanging out downtown. I meet a lot of boaters that dock at the Brunswick Marina, and they say they picked that marina because it's like the safest marina to them if a hurricane rolls through.
It's an excellent marina. It's got a total northeast block, and it's deep water. It doesn't get a bunch of tide. So the barnacle situation, once it gets warm, you're going to get them everywhere, but it's not as bad as some places. But that is it's a underrated marina, and they're probably full because it is one of the nicest marinas as far as weather protection that I know of.
Yeah, I know boaters talk about it all the time.
It's primo. It really, that whole waterfront's primo, and I see there. It's getting better and better. It's had some industry there that's probably not as bustling as it once was, but that's a pretty waterfront. Brunswick's something to be proud of. That's nice down there.
Yeah, that downtown has really come up over, I would say, because I've been here about 10 years, so like at least over the last 10 years, they have really changed downtown.
I agree. I see people putting money in homes down there that are beautiful. I mean, Brunswick is a come-uppance. It looks good.
Yeah. So, how can people find you if they want to book with you to go fishing?
Website is fishthegeorgiacoast.com.
So
Go ahead. fishthegeorgiacoast.com.
Yeah, I got a nice short one.
And you're also on Instagram, social media,
Facebook, and you could probably just Google Tim Cutting, like cutting grass, and you'll find me. Or go down to one of the bait stores and ask if they had any bad experiences. They'll mention me. My name's on the bathroom wall.
On the back. Don't go fishing now.
Yeah.
So, what made you choose this spot to go?
My lovely wife, and she was here. I was in North Florida, and before we got married, we decided this would be the place. She's got a great job here, and it wouldn't benefit us for her to change jobs. She's got a very good job here, and she was going to stay here. And when I first got here, though, I was amazed at the marsh. I mean, if there's such thing as licking your chops or drooling or anything, that was me. I mean, and I'll say, and people may agree or disagree, this coast gets no pressure compared to other places. Now, naturally, Brunswick's bigger. Savannah's bigger than it was 10, 20 years ago. Nothing's ever going to be like it was. But as a rule, this is probably one of the least pressured marshes from St. Mary's to Savannah on the entire East Coast. I mean, it's crazy. Most of the islands are private or state or federal. You can only live on about 3 of them, and the whole coast is barrier islands. And a lot of this is you can't get there from here.
Right.
And it's just, I fished today. And it's beautiful out, and I don't think I saw 7 boats fishing. And if you were in a town like Jacksonville, Charleston, if you didn't get in the parking lot by 8, you're parking on the street.
Yeah, it's a small armada going out there.
There's boat wakes going by, and people all around you, and I'm sure that can be a fun and good thing too. But we literally have very little pressure in the Golden Isles compared to other places. Very little.
Yeah, it keeps it beautiful.
So it makes for a nice, relaxing day fishing.
It does. I mean, and that's not to say you don't pull up to some place. Oh, I caught him here yesterday, and there's 2 boats sitting on it. I mean, that can happen. But as a rule, it's a very low-pressured fishery.
So is there a etiquette if you do roll up on someone's in your fishing spot.
The minute I see someone even close to it, I go the other way.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, if I'm fishing something close, and there's probably an irritation factor when you come to a certain distance, and I may say probably go the other way or back off just a little bit because you're casting into my boat. But there is definitely etiquette. If someone, like bass fishing, someone has a trolling motor down and they're working a bank, you wouldn't cut in front of them. If
Right.
anything, you'd go behind them or go, several hundred yards in front of them. There's definitely, and the fact is, I don't own any of this water, and no one else does. And if I was fishing just one little oyster mound, someone wanted to come and fish it, technically I couldn't say anything.
Right.
I do say something, and my customers heard me say something before. But most of the people, believe it or not, have a lot of etiquette here. And you pull up to a spot and someone's in it, you go somewhere else.
Yeah.
Wow. That's awesome.
Is there something that you've been dying to catch that you haven't caught yet?
Talking about fish, right?
Yeah.
Well, there's a couple diseases.
Yeah. I have to think about that. Yeah, well, I've caught a lot of fish. I've had trout over 10 pounds. On my bucket list, though, it sounds crazy, is I want a 10-pound flounder. I don't have that yet. As far as particular species, I would like to know how to catch some of these sturgeon. I think maybe I've heard someone caught one on a wreck one year. But there are times when, like I said, one jumped in my boat, you'll see hundreds of those things jumping around. I think if someone could figure out how to fish those things, now they may be protected. I think they are. It'd be all catch and release fishing. But I'd be interested to see how they fight and, how they pull and how to catch one of those darn dinosaurs.
Yeah, I mean, they really. So, when you say sturgeon, I'm thinking because these things get to be enormous.
They're enormous.
Are they that size down here, or they're kind of like the?
Most of the ones I see jumping are average 3 to 6 feet.
Those are babies, basically.
Yeah, and compared to like Northwest, those. But these fish are 50 to maybe 120 pounds. They're not not baby babies.
Wow.
But they're not like some of the 10-footers they have in the Northwest and other places.
Yeah, they get big.
They're scary though. They're launching themselves, and they just launch, and they could land anywhere.
They got like a hard.
Yeah, there's like platelets on him, like a dinosaur. He is a dinosaur.
Wow.
He jumped on my boat. I was afraid to touch him.
Prehistoric. Huh?
I lassoed his tail and put him back in the water, and undid the lasso and let him swim off. I mean, I was scared to touch him. He's just an ugly looking thing.
Now, you talked about catch and release, so you have to basically know all the regulations of how big the fish have to be, the limit.
100%. And the DNR does a good job. They have stickers of two types. One's a measuring board, and one is another sticker. These are free too, by the way. You get all you want. There's another sticker that's in the shape of Georgia, and it's got all the regulations on it.
Nice.
And in this day and age, look on the internet if you're not sure.
Right.
But yeah, we don't keep any fishes too small. We don't keep any fishes too many. Why? I mean, it's a great fish. You don't have to. There's a lot of fish around.
There's no excuse.
No,
I mean,
none. Don't stay with your limit. Stay with the size. And if you're not going to eat it, throw it back. And if you've got plenty of fish in the freezer, throw it back. I mean, I hear all these stories. I mean, I got fish from last year. Well, you don't need fish this year then, because you're not even eating the darn stuff.
Yeah. So what do you think of like in Japan? With tuna, like some of these tunas like sell for like a ridiculous amount of money.
And a lot of that's culture. Those, I think Asians, they have a pretty extreme appetite, and I think they're not afraid to get in their wallet for several different items. I mean, tuna's one of them. Rhinoceros horn, and it's out. And tuna is one of those things, and they want fresh sushi grade tuna.
Oh, yeah.
That's huge. I like sushi myself. I mean,
Do you ever have restaurants approach you to sell them any fish that you caught, or have you sold fish to restaurants?
I bought a license. I buy it every year to sell fish. I've never sold a fish in my life.
Yeah.
And every now and then someone will call and say, hey, if you get one of those, I'd like to have it. Or, we'll buy all this you get, But when I fish, I release everything. I don't keep any. But I'd say more than half the customers, they want to eat one or two or all they can get. I mean, I have a lot of people that want to eat the fish, and there's nothing wrong with that. I see people shaming people for keeping fish, but if there's legal, there's no reason to shame those people. And some of those people get to fish once, twice, 3, 4 times a year, and I've seen people, oh, why'd you keep so many? Why'd you do this? Well, if the DNR thinks, that it's a good fishery and this is sustainable, I mean, you should congratulate someone on a good catch.
Yeah.
And I've got probably 3 guys that eat nothing but fish. One guy hadn't eaten meat in 40 years.
Yeah.
and they love it. Doctors say I need to eat fish, Yep. And on the other hand, you can say, well, go buy your fish. But truthfully, some of the experience is catch the fish,
right,
cook the fish, eat the fish. That's just sort of a full circle.
And in some respect, it's almost the same, right? Yeah, maybe some of these fish came from farms, right? But some of these fish were caught. So there's nothing
better than going out, catching a fish, cleaning it, putting it on the grill or in a frying pan, and having it that same day. It's a great. I don't know. There's something awesome about it.
It completes the circle. It's like, this is great. Hook to table is a good thing. And that being said, there's several restaurants in this area that will cook your fish for you. I'll give 228 a plug. They do it, and there's several more on the island. And Mudcat Charlie's is another one that does it. But you call the restaurant, most of them, you bring your filet, and they're happy to do it. I even give Chef Dave at Halyards a little plug. He'll do it as well. And a lot of people will be, I didn't know they did that. But it's worth calling all of them, because I'm not up with which ones do and don't all the time. But most of the things is they cook your fish for a price, and you get 2 sides and a drink. Non-alcoholic.
I don't mind if I'm going out, if I catch something, 1 or 2 things I know I want to clean and eat, and then release the rest that I catch for the rest of the day. It's just knowing your own limit here. I don't need 20 pounds of fish in the freezer. I just want something. We caught a couple of nice fish. They're good size. They're good eat. We'll keep those, and everything after that is just gravy, and it's fun. Because that's the main thing out here. Everyone wants to have fun when they're doing it, because when you try, sometimes it can get very frustrating.
And that's, I probably shouldn't say this, but I've heard many fishermen, not just guides, other fishermen, talking about the people they were fishing with, and they could have fished, they could fish better, I'd have a lot more fish. That is such bull. You know what? I don't. As a guide, especially, it's your job to figure that out. You make them have a good time. You're talking about people that don't get to fish all the time. They're not out there throwing it every day like you are. It'd be, expecting me to hit a baseball like Mickey Mantle. It's not going to happen.
Right.
And so you want them to have fun. You don't want to yell at them, no matter if they spill their coffee in your boat and they break your favorite rod, And I've been fishing in a creek, and this time always sticks in my head when we were throwing corks. All 4 corks in the tree at one time, and all stuck in the tree.
Gosh.
And you just pretty much got been and buried. And I've said, I've been in that tree 100 times myself. Don't worry about it. It takes a second to regroup. But I mean, that's if your people aren't having a good time, they're not coming back.
Yeah.
So I think that's first and foremost, even above catching fish, is to have fun. You hit it on the head. Have a good time out there.
Yeah, to me that's the most important part. Cause I'm same thing. I haven't been fishing for like 20 years, so if I go again, to me it's for the fun of it, and I may not know what I'm doing, but I want to have fun.
And thank God it's a sport that doesn't require a whole bunch of brain work.
Man, look at the pretty sunset behind.
Yeah, this is one of the most prettiest places on the island, really.
Yeah.
I like the north end. This morning I drove up. I did not see one car, and I can't ever remember that happening. And before I saw my customer, I saw alligator, deer, possum, armadillo, osprey, tarpon rolled out there. I think I saw a dead snake on the road, and that was before I saw a person. I mean, those things would make it nice.
Yeah.
So now, if somebody wants, so they can go on your website and then they can just schedule, or do you have like a or do they just reach out to you and then you?
Yeah,
work-
just reach out. Typically call me, and sometimes I answer, but text is best. You get my number, just text, and usually there's a bunch of texting around, and they want to know what are the good dates for December, what are the good dates for January. But usually when I'm off the water, I get around the phone pretty good, especially early afternoon. But most of the time, you can text, I want to talk to you. I don't want to text, and I'll call them back. But a lot of that can be done by text, and I hate to be that guy and felt that. But, I mean, that's a great thing.
It's easier.
Texting. I mean, email even, I don't like messages on social media because I just don't see them. Well, I'd see them about a week later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there are you backlogged right now? Because it's the summertime, it's heavy tourist season. I mean, someone can't come down today and give you a text and say, "Hey, can I go fishing Saturday?"
I think I have some openings in August and September. And then November, December is, and by the way, those are probably the two best months to fish here, for the trout and redfish. November, December, and even January. And people look at me like I'm crazy. Those are the three best months by far for action and a lot of fish. But yeah, right now I think there's a few days left in August and September. October, November, December may be pretty full. But I'm flexible, and sometimes and people cancel. And it depends on what you want to do. Like you were talking about targeting fish, if someone wants to catch fish A and it's not a good tide for fish A, I'm going to tell them it's not a good tide. Or if it's a bad tide, I'll tell you it's a bad tide. We're going to struggle, But often people, the best time to fish is when they can.
Exactly.
That's when they're off. That's when they're visiting, and that's what I got. But I will, and all guides pretty much do. They'll tell them that it's going to be a tough tide, or they want to go offshore, the wind's blowing too hard, or we just don't have a good redfish bite going on right now. Whatever the situation may be. But pretty upfront. I'm going to tell you what's up.
Yeah. So people listening, you kind of have to plan this out ahead of time a little bit.
It's best. When we weren't so busy, and there were probably days open. And I will say this: I mean, if people call me, I'll get on the whole list of names. Like I said, there's 20 guides around here, and I recommend them. If I'm busy, call them. And if you're thinking about going, you can call one or two, kick the tires, talk to the guy you don't like, his hours, his price, his attitude, or you love it all, and you want a good fit, So I highly recommend. Except for me, you can text me, but talk to your guy. Honestly, and like I said, we've been blessed. Most of the people I've taken for the last 10 years. So I would say repeat is over 90%. Yep. But there's always room, due to attrition, different things happen. People get tired of me. So
Never.
There's always, oh yeah.
Are the fishing rates pretty much standard across all the guides, or is there a big disparity between?
I think so. Honestly, I'm probably on the lower end. Just because it hadn't changed in forever, and I probably need to, but I think everyone's probably within 10% of each other, 20%. And it's a big nut to make. I mean, a lot of guys, there's a lot of cost in this. Just gasoline for one is huge. You're not going to get away for less than $5 a gallon at just about any marina.
Yeah,
so
marine fuel is ridiculous.
It's what it is, and then boat stands for bring on another 1,000, and that happens about once a month. And fishing gear. Fishing gear is not expensive. I mean, you can use low cost fishing gear, but in the end, you're just going to be buying just as much if you're using good fishing gear, and you don't have to break the bank, but all those there's a lot of cost involved, and I don't think unless you were like some of these outfitters in different states that have 5, 6, 7 boats, it's not a thing you're going to get rich on. It's not going to happen. Everyone thinks how romantic and how great and what the perfect job is, but you will not get rich being a charter captain. I recommend working a job for 20 years, retire, and then do it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for coming on. We appreciate it.
You guys are great. I enjoyed it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
This is this is something I've been looking forward to for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah, and hopefully this podcast grows, and love to have you on here again. Maybe
the next one will be you'll talk about what you caught.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And maybe we can do it at the end of like towards like October.
The best
November.
time to fish is when you can.
Yeah. So, awesome.
Absolutely.
So, wow, cool. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks again.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.